My name is Clara, and if you're reading this, it's because you've heard about the scandal. The one where I was publicly fired by my own COO in front of an entire boardroom full of people, investors, colleagues, friends, and then left to pick up the pieces of my shattered dignity while he smirked from his leather chair like some modern-day kingpin. Yeah, that story. But what they don't know, the part that hasn't leaked yet, is how I turned his $300 million deal into the weapon I used to destroy him. It all started with me standing at the edge of a cliff, not literally but metaphorically speaking. My life had been consumed by the company I helped build, Horizon Dynamics. We weren't just another tech startup, we were pioneers. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, predictive analytics, we were changing industries, creating tools that could revolutionize businesses worldwide. And for years, I poured every ounce of myself into making sure our vision became reality. But somewhere along the way, things changed. Somewhere along the way, he changed. His name is Victor Langston. When we first met, he seemed harmless enough, a smooth talker with charm oozing out of every pore, the kind of guy who could sell ice cubes to Eskimos without breaking a sweat. He joined us as Chief Operating Officer when Horizon Dynamics was still finding its footing, back when we were more bootstrapped than funded. At the time, I thought hiring him was a stroke of genius. He brought structure, discipline, and connections to the table, things we desperately needed. What I didn't realize was that beneath his polished exterior lay a toxic core, rotting everything it touched. Victor wasn't content being second in command forever. As Horizon grew, so did his ambition and his ego. Slowly but surely, he began isolating me from decision-making processes, undermining my authority in meetings and taking credit for ideas that weren't his. It was subtle at first, almost imperceptible. A snide comment here, a dismissive gesture there. Then came the whispers about my leadership style, my lack of focus, my supposed inability to handle the pressures of scaling a global enterprise. By the time I realized what was happening, it felt too late to stop it. But let's rewind a bit, shall we? Because none of this would have mattered if not for the day everything blew up. That morning, I walked into the office feeling confident. Horizon Dynamics had just landed a massive contract, a $300 million partnership with a Fortune 500 company. This wasn't just any deal, it was validation. Proof that all those sleepless nights, endless pitches, and sacrifices had paid off. I remember sitting in my car outside the building, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror, thinking, asterisk, this is it. This is the moment we've been working toward, asterisk. Little did I know, Victor had other plans. The board meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m., and as usual, I arrived early. I liked to sit at the head of the table, reviewing notes and mentally preparing for the discussion ahead. But when I stepped into the conference room, something felt off. Instead of the usual quiet hum of preparation, the air was thick with tension. Everyone was already seated, even Victor, which was unusual. Normally, he'd stroll in 5 minutes late, making a grand entrance, as if to remind everyone who held the real power. I took my seat, forcing a smile as I greeted the room. Morning, everyone. Big day today. No one responded, not even a nod, just silence. Then Victor spoke, his voice calm but laced with venom. Clara, before we begin, there's something we need to address. Something inside me froze. His tone, it wasn't right. Too formal. Too rehearsed. I glanced around the table, searching for reassurance in familiar faces, but no one met my eyes. They were all looking down, avoiding me like I was contagious. What's going on? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Victor leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. We've been reviewing your performance over the past year, Clara, and frankly, the consensus is that you're holding the company back. My heart dropped. What are you talking about? You've become a liability, he continued, as if reciting lines from a script. Your management style is erratic. You micromanage. You can't delegate effectively. And most importantly, you lack the vision necessary to take Horizon to the next level. Each word hit me like a punch to the gut. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but nothing came out. How could this be happening? These accusations weren't true, or at least not entirely. Sure, I was hands-on, maybe even controlling at times, but only because I cared. Only because I wanted Horizon to succeed. Before I could gather my thoughts, Victor delivered the final blow. Effective immediately, the board has decided to relieve you of your duties as CEO. The room spun. My ears rang. For a moment, I thought I might pass out. Relieve me of my duties? After everything I'd done for this company? After everything I'd sacrificed? This isn't fair, I managed to choke out. You can't do this. Oh, but we can, Victor said with a smug grin. And we have. I looked to the board members, pleading silently for someone, anyone, to speak up on my behalf. But they remained silent, their expressions blank masks of indifference. Some wouldn't even look at me. It was as if I'd already ceased to exist. In that moment, I hated them. All of them. But most of all, I hated Victor. His betrayal cut deeper than anything I'd ever experienced. He wasn't just stealing my position. He was erasing my legacy, rewriting history to make himself the hero. And worst of all, there was nothing I could do to stop him. Or so he thought. After the meeting, I stumbled out of the conference room in a daze. Employees stared as I made my way to my office, their whispers following me like shadows. Word spread quickly in a place like Horizon Dynamics. By lunchtime, everyone knew. Clara Monroe, co-founder and former CEO, had been ousted, fired, kicked to the curb like yesterday's trash. I spent the rest of the day packing up my belongings, each item a painful reminder of everything I'd lost. Photos of early team celebrations, awards for innovation and leadership, even a framed quote from Steve Jobs that used to hang above my desk. The only way to do great work is to love what you do. Love? Huh. What a joke. By the time I left the building, the sun had set, casting long shadows across the parking lot. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Tears streamed down my face, blurring my vision. I wanted to scream, to smash something, to unleash the rage boiling inside me. But instead, I forced myself to breathe. In, out, because deep down, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Victor's face, smug and triumphant, looming over me like a storm cloud. I replayed the board meeting over and over in my mind, dissecting every word, every glance, every nuance. Why hadn't anyone stood up for me? Hadn't I earned their loyalty? Their respect? As dawn broke, exhaustion finally gave way to clarity. If Victor thought he could push me out and get away with it, he was dead wrong. I may have lost Horizon Dynamics, but I still had one thing he didn't anticipate: knowledge. Years of experience, connections, and insider information that could bring him crashing down. And that's exactly what I planned to do. Over the next few weeks, I laid low, letting Victor believe he'd won. Publicly, I played the role of the disgraced executive, retreating from social media and avoiding industry events. Privately, however, I worked tirelessly, piecing together evidence of his misconduct. Financial discrepancies, questionable business practices, manipulation of data to inflate quarterly reports. Victor thought he was untouchable, but he'd underestimated one crucial factor. Greed always leaves a trail. One name kept popping up during my investigation: Nadia Patel. She was a junior analyst at Horizon, young and eager, with a reputation for being meticulous. Rumor had it she'd uncovered irregularities in Victor's expense reports but had been silenced, reassigned to a dead-end project far removed from executive oversight. If anyone could help me expose the truth, it was her. Tracking her down wasn't easy. Nadia had gone off-grid after leaving Horizon, wary of retaliation. But persistence paid off. After weeks of phone calls, emails, and messages through mutual contacts, I finally got her to agree to meet. We arranged a talk at a small cafe downtown, tucked away in a corner booth where prying eyes couldn't find us. When Nadia walked in, she looked nervous, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting someone to follow her. She ordered a black coffee and fidgeted with the sugar packets, while I explained why I needed her help. "I know what Victor did to you," I said softly, "and I'm sorry." Nadia hesitated, her fingers trembling as she stirred her drink. "He threatened me," she admitted. "Said if I said anything, I'd never work in tech again." "I believe you," I replied, "and I want to make sure he pays for it." For a moment, she just stared at me, weighing her options. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "Let's take him down." With Nadia's assistance, the pieces began falling into place. Together, we uncovered a web of deceit spanning years, implicating not only Victor but several high-ranking executives who'd turn a blind eye in exchange for personal gain. But exposing the truth wasn't enough. To truly dismantle Victor's empire, I needed leverage. And that's where the $300 million deal came in. Horizon's partnership with the Fortune 500 company wasn't just lucrative, it was fragile. The terms were complex, riddled with contingencies that required strict adherence to ethical guidelines. One misstep, one hint of impropriety, and the whole thing could collapse, which meant Victor's carefully constructed facade was teetering on the brink of disaster. All I had to do was give it a little push. The battle lines were drawn, alliances forged, and strategies mapped out. Yet, despite my determination, doubts lingered. Could I really pull this off? Or would Victor's influence prove insurmountable? One thing was clear. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, betrayals, and sacrifices. But as I stared at the documents spread across my kitchen table, evidence of Victor's corruption glaring back at me, I felt a spark ignite within. This wasn't just revenge anymore. It was justice. And justice, no matter how elusive, was worth fighting for. After months of meticulous planning, sleepless nights, and calculated risks, the day finally came when everything would either fall into place or crumble around me. I stood outside the sleek glass building where Horizon Dynamics headquarters loomed like a fortress, a symbol of Victor's power and control. But today it wouldn't protect him. Nadia and I had spent weeks gathering irrefutable proof of Victor's misconduct. Falsified financial reports, emails detailing illegal kickbacks, and even audio recordings of him pressuring employees to cover up his schemes. The piece de resistance, however, was the $300 million deal itself. Buried deep within its terms were clauses that explicitly prohibited unethical business practices. If those violations came to light, the Fortune 500 company would have no choice but to terminate the partnership. And without it, Horizon Dynamics would collapse under the weight of its own greed. But exposing this wasn't as simple as sending an anonymous tip. No, we needed leverage, a way to ensure that justice was served publicly, dramatically, and irreversibly. That's why I decided to confront Victor directly at the annual shareholder meeting. It was risky, yes, but sometimes you need to walk straight into the lion's den to take back what's yours. The morning of the meeting, I dressed carefully in a sharp black suit, my hair pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail. This wasn't about looking polished. It was about commanding respect. As I walked into the conference room, heads turned. Some people gasped audibly, while others whispered behind their hands. They hadn't expected to see me here, not after being so thoroughly erased from the company narrative. Victor sat at the head of the table, flanked by board members who looked more like puppets than decision-makers. When he saw me, his smug smile faltered for just a second before returning with twice the arrogance. "Clara," he said, coolly standing up, "what are you doing here?" I didn't respond right away. Instead, I placed a folder on the table and slid it toward him. Inside were copies of every document Nadia and I had collected, all damning evidence of his crimes. His eyes widened slightly as he flipped through the pages, but he quickly masked his shock with a dismissive laugh. "Is this supposed to scare me?" he asked, tossing the folder aside. "These are baseless accusations, Clara. You're grasping at straws." "Oh, I'm not done yet," I replied, pulling out my phone. With a few taps, I connected it to the projector screen mounted on the wall. Suddenly, the room filled with the sound of Victor's voice, recordings of him orchestrating cover-ups, threatening whistleblowers, and boasting about how untouchable he was. The color drained from his face as he realized there was nowhere left to hide. "This is impossible," he stammered, standing up abruptly. "You can't." "I can," I interrupted, my voice steady and strong. "And I will. Because, unlike you, Victor, I care about integrity. I care about the people who poured their hearts into making Horizon Dynamics what it is today. And most importantly, I care about holding you accountable for the damage you've done." By now, the shareholders were murmuring among themselves, horrified by what they were hearing. One elderly woman, a major investor, stood up and addressed the room. "Is this true, Mr. Langston? Have you been lying to us all along?" Victor opened his mouth to deny it, but no words came out. The truth was undeniable, laid bare for everyone to see. Within minutes, the board called an emergency session, and Victor was stripped of his title, removed from the company entirely, and banned from serving on any corporate board in the future. Justice had been swift and satisfying, but the story didn't end there. With Victor gone, the board approached me, asking me to return as CEO. At first, I hesitated. Could I really go back to a place that had betrayed me so completely? Could I trust them not to repeat the same mistakes? After much deliberation and some soul-searching, I agreed, but only under one condition: complete transparency moving forward. No more secrets, no more backroom deals. Horizon Dynamics would become a beacon of ethical leadership, setting new standards for accountability in the tech industry. Under my renewed leadership, the company flourished. We renegotiated the $300 million deal, ensuring it aligned with our values, and used the funds to expand initiatives focused on sustainability, diversity, and innovation. Employees who had once feared speaking up now felt empowered to share their ideas, knowing they'd be heard and respected. And Nadia? She became my right hand, rising through the ranks faster than anyone could have predicted. As for Victor, his downfall was swift and public. News outlets picked up the story, painting him as the poster child for corporate corruption. He disappeared from the spotlight, reduced to nothing more than a cautionary tale. Looking back, I realized that losing Horizon Dynamics was the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to confront my weaknesses, rebuild my strength, and rediscover the passion that drove me to start the company in the first place. More importantly, it taught me the value of resilience, that sometimes the hardest battles lead to the greatest victories. Today, I stand tall, not as someone seeking revenge, but as someone committed to creating a better future for myself, for my team, and for the world. Because in the end, success isn't measured by titles or bank accounts. It's measured by the lives you touch and the legacy you leave behind. And mine? Well, let's just say it's far from over.